Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be diving into a VOD review of the March finals for the Pokemon Unite Championship Series for Japan. Now, one team, I can clearly call them T2. They have a tag on. The other team, I did a translation on Google, and it comes up with a word I can't pronounce, and then the name Pirates. So I might call them the Pirates, but in any case, the right side team. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the builds for game number one, and then we're going to watch these couple of games and go from there. So inside my webcam, and we're going to look at it. So T2, very Score Shield heavy team. You can see they're running a Score Shield on the Ninetales and the Duraludon. Really, really interesting. A kind of standard stacking build coming out from the Greedent. So that's, Greedent still in high regard in the eastern side of the world in Japan, and using the fluffy tail, still stacking build for the Lucario. And then the only non-stacking build, or the not stacking build, Score Shield build, the only non-Score Shield build is going to be the HOOPA, which is a pretty standard support build with that muscle band and that EXP share. As for the right-hand side of the screen, we have a nice scope lens muscle band Decidueye, so we'll see how that works out for them. They're trying to maybe counter the Duraludon. And then focus band, because Buddy Barrier on Decidueye is just not that great, so not a bad build. I've used that on Decidueye as well. A non-Score Shield stacking build for Lucario, a Choice Specs Pikachu, which I think is really, really interesting, and a non-Score Shield stacking build for Talonflame with a full tank setup on Blastoise. So let's go ahead and dive into this game and see what it is all about. See if I can fast forward a little bit, get us into the game. All right, so here we are in game number one. We're going to be watching the left-hand start. I'm assuming that Ruin is their jungler. He's going to hit that over the wall. Really interesting. Really, really interesting strategy. So they're starting off by assisting the jungler with the HOOPA. We have the Invade Greedent, which cannot get blue buff, I don't think. Oh, wow, he gets the blue buff. I feel like the Decidueye player kind of messed up to not just finish it. It's really hard to get blue buff on Invade Greedent, so this is already a huge W, to be completely honest. So they did like a single buff clear, and now they're contesting lane in top lane. That's so interesting. Look, like they're leaving jungle up for so long. Like 3/4 of jungle is still up. You have Ninetales peeling back. So they have like kind of like a split jungle strategy where they're maybe like min-maxing. Oh my gosh, okay. So a little bit of return farm and experience kind of going back towards the orange side because they were able to do so. Hyperspace Hole getting placed down. So that's, we know their HOOPA's playing Hyperspace Hole, but they're splitting the farm a bit around. And look at this, they have a 4-man response to top lane. This is such an interesting playstyle, such an interesting way to watch Hyperspace Hole be used, and like just really, really aggressive. We've been in the game for less than a minute and a half, and they're already like hard pushing top lane. Again, this is a score-focused team, so this might be the first time we're watching kind of like any kind of like a score comp or score-focused playstyle with the Hyperspace Hole, because we haven't, been able to see that in previous tournaments. So T2 really kind of showing maybe the potential strength of HOOPA and the way that they're, creative and able to use it. I think that's really, really interesting. Again, Invade Greedent, especially against a Decidueye. Maybe that's the reason why they decided to go so invade heavy, is because the Decidueye. Like maybe it was just normally going to be like one crab and out and kind of slow down that first rotation. And then now we see we have Ninetales is like consistently taking jungle. So really no like clear jungler. I mean, I'm sure they have like a clear jungler player, but they're being a lot more loose with their strategy, min-maxing their positions, potentially just trying to get as much farm as they can. It's almost hard to break down because we really just don't watch this playstyle too often to know exactly what they go after, right? Like we just know that they have a bunch of score shields. T2 wants to score if they can, and yeah, very, very interesting. I know my camera's covering up the levels, but just for context, the highest level player in the game is the Ninetales, who didn't even start out at jungle at level 8, while the enemy Decidueye player is only at level 6. So they're struggling a little bit. 9 was just secured by the Ninetales, so now they have their Unite move for this first Dreadnought. And I've noticed that even in like score comps or like score heavy playstyles, which this isn't really like a traditional score comp or anything, they still very much so tend to play for Dreadnought. They don't want to get behind, because then that leads to the whole like, wow, he got that. Okay, so right side team was able to get the Dreadnought, which doesn't even give them any level 9s. Well, it gives them Lucario level 9, but it's just such a big momentum swing when that gets stolen. So T2 is going to fall behind a little bit on that one. Or really, they're going to give him the ability to catch up on that one, and they're going to get a 40 overdunk potentially, or a 36 overdunk. No, he's going to have to step away from that. But still, they put that 40 points in. They close the gap a lot. If you can already tell, 76 to 100 in points, really, really close now. And then the experience is definitely swinging either pretty even or slightly in favor of the orange side team. So very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. All right, we see a push coming in top side. He's going to Unite move here. Yep. Has to do it just for the Buddy Barrier to stay alive, but they're able to push that one player off, and now the Decidueye ult is like helping to siege this goal. So good usage of the Decidueye ult just to be able to push this. The hyperspace hole, though, like that, it makes making plays like this incredibly hard. They fight, and that's great, but at the end of the day, that hyperspace hole just opens up that portal, and they're not able to like take it away from them. So which when you overcommit to something like that, it ends up in this situation where that tower dive not only was unsuccessful, but it leads to the enemy team's T2 getting the Rotom, which isn't that big of a deal, but it's something they have to deal with now, right? Now they lose farming time. Now they lose positioning on, the bottom side of the map. They might potentially lose their bottom tier 1 tower. There's just a lot of repercussions for making an aggressive play, and that aggressive play going negatively, on top of the experience that you give up. So it's definitely interesting to see that kind of play be made against a hyperspace hole HOOPA. I mean, maybe they just thought they could do it quickly, because if they could have, it would have been, it would have been nice, right? If it would have worked. All right, posturing for this bottom fight. They do have the HOOPA Unite, and that's why we see players dunking in that top lane. So really using the global presence of the HOOPA. Now the fight's kind of breaking out. Orange side Lucario was just super, super far forward, and with them all kind of like portaling in, or the Ninetales Lucario porting in, they're able to kind of like fight this and win the fight. I think, yep, looks like T2 was able to take the Dreadnought, so they're going to get those shields. Look at that hyperspace hole usage. They're going to pop right back out, full health. So really good like coordinated play with the hyperspace hole, and the Blastoise is really the only one that can stay alive, but there's nothing they can do with it, nothing they can really do with it. Yeah, so they're going to take him down, which is mostly, more than anything, just a lot of lost points. The levels are pretty even, actually, on both sides. I'd say T2 has a slight advantage, but if anything, they're controlling the pacing of the game, which means that they're controlling the score. And so they're obviously naturally in the lead. They also are the team that is running heavy score shields and things of that nature, so they have more end game potential. I think if you're a team that is running like a ton of score shields, you have to know that your team fight is technically a little bit weaker than if you were playing against a team that's not running a ton of score shields, because that third slot item is kind of going to be better for fighting. Like if you were to take an exact mirror comp and have one team with score shields and the other team that had focus bands, well, technically, I mean, assuming there's no human variance, right, which like the human element of being a player that plays the game and makes mistakes, technically the focus band team would win that fight. So the fact that T2 is not really falling behind and have been able to consistently like do well and keep up, or even be beating the orange side team, is a good sign for them, because they're strong enough and capable of winning that fight. That's always kind of like the fear. Same thing with goal getter, right? Like if you're consciously taking a goal getter, then you have a battle item that you can't really fight with. So just one of those like random thoughts that I have out here, I guess. All right, third dread is coming up. The score is clearly in favor of T2, and the levels are they're slightly in favor of T2. Like I said, they're actually pretty even, because like one person on the orange side team is 14, one person or two people on the left side team are 13. So it's like the levels are pretty even. Like they should be able to have a nice fight here. You can see the teams kind of like stacking around the Zapdos pit. They're getting their positioning. The Decidueye is getting some nice snipes in. That's good. I mean, it's just good chip damage that they have to deal with, right? But Decidueye is hard to fight with, and in endgame team fighting, oh my gosh, there's already just so much damage. He's already forced to use the Blastoise Unite, which really only hits one person. The knock comes out from Decidueye, but it looks like T2 is just chipping and able to like catch people out so easily that the fight is like kind of won before it even breaks down. That said, it's kind of turning around a little bit, but the HOOPA is still there. The HOOPA's there. The Ninetales has levels and has plenty of health, and they're just going to go ahead and take this one. So very well done. Very well done. That fight really broke with like a couple players on the orange side team just like kind of getting caught out and like hit really, really hard. So at that point, it just turns into like a we got damage first. We're going to go ahead and win this game. All right, so T2 takes game number 1 in a really, really interesting strategy. I'm excited to see if they pull that off again, because that was just really interesting the way they prioritized their early jungle. Let me go ahead and walk this back a little bit, and we'll get into game number 2. So let's go ahead and watch game number 2. Team comp wise, let's see if I can actually walk it back a tiny bit more, because I'd like to see what they picked. Okay, so team comp wise, it looks like we're making a slight change on the side of the orange side team, where they're pulling in the Charizard. My memory is so bad I can't remember what they had. Pulling in the Charizard. Oh, they had a Decidueye, so they're pulling in the Charizard over the Decidueye, which I definitely think is going to be much more helpful. I think, yeah. Again, Focus Band Decidueye, Charizard is something we see a lot in Japan. They like the Focus Band on it, gives it that extra sustain. It's at the cost of damage from this not having like a scope lens, naturally. But let's go ahead and see how this game breaks down. So T2, let's see if they do their same strategy where they send the jungle invade. They have a couple people help kill this really, really quickly, and they share the EXP, what looks like, between Lillipup and Bouffalant, and then they go top lane. Now the thing is like, would this work if they were on sand side? Like you know what I mean? Because then they'd be on the bottom side of the jungle. It's a really interesting strategy. I wonder, firstly, I wonder why they got grass side twice, I suppose, to say that, because I think that they should be switching sides, because there is a literal difference between playing on sand side and grass side. Now Haruta is having a hard time because invade greeting is hard to do. It's really, really hard to do now, and he can't really get the blue against a fast jungle clear at all, which Charizard has, or Charmander has a pretty fast jungle clear. And so yeah, this is really interesting. We're starting to see a big rotation top lane. This is pre hyperspace hole, I think. They didn't want to telegraph it, but they have their 4 people top lane. I'm just curious what the goal is, right? Look at this. It's even responded with by 4 people top lane. That said, T2 is looking to do a lot of damage. Tons of damage here. So they're clearly the winners of this. What is the goal? It's like, I'm trying to break this down. I think the goal is just that they can get away with doing this. And because where maybe teams and players don't usually expect a big investment in top lane, they can get away with doing this, and then they just port back down, and there's really no time loss, there's really no fear, because you just get away with it. I'm assuming it has to be something like that. But like, look at the free point scoring, and we know in like Japanese meta that they don't necessarily, at least a lot of the time from what I've been able to see, they don't necessarily look at like overdunking. They're trying to open up those lanes, potentially set up like base win cons, and I'm not quite sure if I can feel comfortably saying that that's what T2 is trying to do, but they are just trying to get points in. But early points also lead to early strength, because it's early experience from scores. So it could be a lot of different angles that they're approaching this from. It's really hard to say exactly. That was a nice kill. So Haruta, even with the greeted nerfs, making it work. I mean, he's already greeted with Covet now, so making it work. And I like seeing the hyperspace hole competitively. It's something we haven't quite seen yet, because in the the Western world, North American meta, we're running a lot of trick HOOPA. All right, 720s are up. We got a 2 and a 3 lane from T2, 2 and a 3 lane from the orange side team. The winning team currently, especially experience-wise and points-wise, is T2. They're putting 18 in the top lane. That's nice. That's going to leave that goal at 2, which either will be a big overdunk or will be a Rotom break, or they can break it before Rotom crashes at some point. So some options there for overdunks or for aggressive pushing plays. Now they're ripping the Dread. They do have the Belch with the Fluffy Tail, so that Secure is always going to be pretty strong. Oh, and they have the Duraludon. I don't even know what I'm saying. They just pop it quick, nice, easy. Let's see who got it. The Belch Greedent, yeah. So they have really great Secure on their team. And they're not even, again, the crazy thing is that they're not even playing for like level 9s. Like they're not playing to min-max a jungler to 9. They do kind of feed the Ninetales the most they can. But I also think that that's why we're starting to see a little bit of jungle Ninetales, because Ninetales is very, very strong right now. Like, so jungle Ninetales in the Western world starting to get a little bit of play. I don't know if that's something that we'll see in the March finals for North America, but Japan doing some really interesting things with their levels. I like seeing it because I can't quite understand it, if I'm being completely honest. I don't exactly see what they're doing with their early game, other than posturing. Like I can see it literally. They're kind of relying on the Invade Greedent to set the enemy team down. They're using their like early jungle clear with HOOPA Duraludon to kind of like min-max and push levels around, get to top lane. Then they're funneling the EXP into Ninetales. And again, look at this aggressive play that I said they had the option to make. So we end up seeing them break that top goal, completely open the base win con. And again, they have 4 score shields on this comp. So it's not necessarily that they have like the Wiggly with the full base win con type of scenario, but it's probably an option for them. I don't want to say that it is an option for them, because again, it's really hard for me to break down their strategy or exactly what they want, but they've clearly got a very score heavy and just score heavy play style. So whether or not that's just for the preservation of the lead going into the final 2 minutes, so that way they don't have to make decisions, because I think that's important. I think one thing about Unite that is not necessarily talked about a whole lot is that having the lead going into endgame is incredibly important, because it forces the hand of the enemy team. And when you're running a HOOPA, you have scoring potential where you can send the team into the base to score, back cap one player, and teleport them back into the fight. HOOPA brings a lot of presence, and it's from that global Unite move. All right, Unite move coming down from the Greedent. You see that coming down from the HOOPA as well. We have the Ninetales trying to base score on them just to get some extra points in, but we'll probably just teleport out. Yep, you can see that. Just teleported out. Wasn't able to get that. The Talonflame was all over him. So the presence coming out from HOOPA, and we've seen it 2 games on this second Dreadnought, is that global presence. And that's why HOOPA is held in such high regard competitively, because of the fact that you can make decisions to ignore an objective and do something else and then still be at that objective, given the right call out and the right timing. So the last Rotom is up. Yeah, this is really interesting. I think that what we're starting to see, or what I feel like I'm starting to see, is more and more and more the decline of something like Talonflame, even in the Western meta, or the Eastern meta, sorry. And maybe this is like a team that is just like struggling to adapt to that playstyle, because Talonflame has been played a lot in Japan, a ton in Japan, for scoring reasons, for like lane pressuring, and I think that we're probably gonna slowly start to see that wind down as we have characters like Ninetales, Duraludon, HOOPA, I mean, just like different characters that have entered the meta that are really changing the way that it's played. But that's a big team fight here in the top lane. Actually looks like the orange side team is doing really, really well here. Again, in theory, I actually think that the orange side team's team fight is like a little bit better, maybe minus the Talonflame. But their team fight is really solid. It's definitely much better than the last fight, or the last comp they ran with the Decidueye, because they just have to get so much damage early on. But even then, that really doesn't do a whole lot for them. It frees them up. It gives them a little bit of breathing room to not have to deal with this Rotom. But T2 should just be able to catch this Rotom and get rid of it. We'll see what they do right now, because I would love to see the orange side team maybe push bottom tier 1 right now. Like if they were in position to 5-man push the bottom tier 1, they could potentially break that tower. They have to let someone deal with this, or just let it crash in. So it gives them some options, but they're not going to do that. I would like to have seen that happen to see what that could have turned into. But T2 is, they're letting the Ninetales hold. They're going to go ahead and flip this, and go ahead and take this, rip this down. They most likely have the HOOPA Unite, so given the timing of the game, if the orange team did show up, they could just probably rip the HOOPA Unite and turn this into the Zap fight in that bottom lane over that Dreadnought. But they get the free Dreadnought, they get the free experience, they have, a level 14, 3 level 13s. T2 is incredibly strong. And look, this is already kind of happening again, where they're taking a bunch of damage. The orange side team takes a bunch of damage, and the fight hasn't really even started. So getting zoned out, And if you leave this too long, the Duraludon, I feel like will flip. I don't know if that's how, you know, Japanese playstyle works. Oh my goodness, you cannot be jumping over the wall like that, I feel. In game, like competitively, jumping over the wall on that jump tower is just like the little jump pad is so much damage that you're gonna take and give them to start the fight for free. It just looks like T2 is just winning this way too easily. They're just on the same page, they're clumped up, they're going together. I feel like jumping that wall really is just so illegal. You cannot do that. You cannot jump that wall and take that much damage right as a fight's about to start, especially on a Charizard where like the Unite move can get canceled so quickly. So T2, I'm gonna be honest, I think that they outclassed this other team pretty strongly. Obviously, a really strong team to make it all the way to the finals, you know, through the opens, through the March finals. But I really do think that T2, a team that I'm actually rather unfamiliar with, is doing really well in this meta. So really interesting stuff to see. I like this. This is showing me that not only is the meta evolving in the Western world, but in the Eastern world as well. They're really adapting and taking, you know, taking usage of the hyperspace hole, which again, we in the Eastern world or the Western world haven't really seen. We don't play that in North America, really. We'll probably see a lot of HOOPA today. And as of the time of recording this, we have the March finals today. We'll probably see a lot of HOOPA today. I really doubt we're going to see any hyperspace hole. So it's going to be really interesting to see. So friends, thank you so much for watching this. T2 is going to take it definitive winners 2-0 in the March finals of the Unite Championship Series. Really interesting stuff. I really enjoyed watching this. It's one of those things I just want to keep watching. I want to keep watching more, and I might even go back and watch more of this broadcast because I didn't have the chance to watch most of it to see how the meta is evolving in Japan. But we're getting closer and closer to the World Finals. So thank you so much for watching. Drop a like on the video. Leave me a comment on what you think. What you think you know, what you think you can derive from this. It's really interesting stuff. But as always, be sure to be kind to one another. Tell someone that you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.